Let me begin with a small story. Once, a man was running everywhere trying to fix everything. His job, his relationships, his confidence, his failures. He kept saying, "When TCY change, I will be happy." But the world didn't change. He got tired, frustrated, disappointed, until one day an old monk told him, "You have been trying to change the mirror without washing your own face." My dear friends, isn't this exactly what we do? We try to control situations, people, outcomes, but forget the simplest law of life: change begins from within. When you focus on yourself, you stop running behind the world, and the world starts running behind you. When you work on your mind works for you. When you heal your heart begins to guide you. And when you choose peace over drama, peace becomes your lifestyle. So today, let's talk about a beautiful truth. When you focus on yourself, everything changes, quietly, slowly, but magically. When you truly begin to focus on yourself, something beautiful happens inside you. You stop begging the world to tell you who you are. You stop waiting for someone to clap for you, praise you, notice you, or approve of you. You realize that self-worth is not something people hand over to you like a certificate. It is something you build slowly, quietly, consistently within yourself. Most people live their entire life chasing validation, like a thirsty traveler searching for water in a desert. They run from person to person, hoping someone will finally say, "You are enough." But no matter how much validation they receive, it never lasts, because the real emptiness is on the inside. And anything that is empty on the inside cannot be filled from the outside. When you focus on yourself, you break this cycle. You begin to understand that the opinions of others are nothing more than echoes, loud for a moment, but fading soon after. You learn that someone's compliment doesn't increase your value, and someone's criticism doesn't reduce it. You stop shrinking yourself because someone doesn't understand you, and you stop inflating yourself because someone praises you. Instead, you stay centered, grounded, calm. You listen to your inner voice more than the noise outside. You start doing things not because they will impress the world, but because they will improve you. Slowly, you begin to notice a shift. The things that once bothered you, who liked your post, who didn't message back, who didn't acknowledge your efforts, stop controlling your emotions. You realize that people are busy fighting their own battles, and your worth cannot depend on their attention. You start valuing your own opinion, your own growth, your own satisfaction. You stop asking, "Will they like this?" and start asking, "Is this right for me?" Your focus moves from pleasing the world to building yourself. And when that shift happens, you become unshakable. Because a person who knows their worth can walk through criticism, rejection, and judgment without breaking. A person who validates themselves does not lose confidence even when the world stays silent. Focusing on yourself is not selfish. It is self-respect. It is choosing to give yourself the approval you once begged from others. It is standing tall even when no one claps. It is loving yourself enough to know that you do not need external applause to continue your journey. And when you reach this stage, life becomes peaceful, because the only person you need permission from is you. When you begin focusing on yourself, clarity slowly enters your life like sunlight breaking through a cloudy morning. For years, most of us move through life on autopilot, doing what others expect, choosing what society approves, following paths that were never truly ours. We study what our parents wanted, we work where circumstances push us, we live a life built from expectations instead of aspirations. And in all that noise, our own voice becomes faint, almost unheard. But the moment you turn inward and give yourself attention, space, and reflection, something powerful happens. You finally start hearing yourself again. Clarity doesn't appear in a flash, it grows quietly when you start asking the right questions. What do I actually want? What lifestyle truly brings me peace? Which people nourish my soul and which drain it? These questions may sound simple, but they open doors you never noticed before. You begin noticing which dreams are yours and which dreams you borrowed from someone else. You realize you don't need to chase everything, only what's aligned with who you truly are. Most confusion in life comes from trying to satisfy too many opinions. One person says, do this. Another says, don't do that. Someone warns you, someone pressures you, someone compares you, and in the middle of all these voices, you lose the ability to recognize your own path. But when you focus on yourself, you quiet the crowd, you turn the world's volume down and your inner wisdom up. And that inner wisdom has always known the answer. It was just waiting for silence. This clarity changes how you make decisions. You stop choosing things out of fear, fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of failure. Instead, you start choosing things out of purpose. Decisions become less about what will please others and more about what will bring you closer to your authentic self. You stop forcing relationships that drain you. You stop pursuing dreams that don't excite you. You stop trying to fit into places where you constantly feel out of place. You walk away from what confuses you and walk toward what completes you. Clarity also simplifies your life. You no longer feel the need to explain yourself to everyone because you understand yourself. You no longer feel guilty for choosing differently because the direction feels right internally. You stop being torn between too many paths because your heart chooses one. And once your heart chooses, your mind finally rests. When you focus on yourself, clarity becomes your compass. It guides your decisions, it refines your priorities, it sharpens your discipline, and it helps you recognize what truly matters. And the beautiful thing is, when you gain clarity on the inside, the world on the outside starts making sense. Opportunities appear because now you know what you're looking for. People align with you because now you know who you are. Life flows smoother because confusion is no longer driving your choices. Clarity is not something you find outside, it is something you uncover within. All it needs is your attention, your honesty, and your willingness to listen to your own heart. When you focus on yourself, that clarity finally arrives. When you truly begin to focus on yourself, something profound starts happening inside your emotional world. The storms that once shook you begin to lose their power. The same situations that once triggered you, upset you, or made you feel small, suddenly don't control you the way they used to. Because emotional strength is not built by changing the world around you. It is built by changing the world within you. And focusing on yourself is the first step in that transformation. Most of us spend years reacting to everything, someone's words, someone's behavior, someone's tone, someone's silence. A slight comment ruins the entire day. A small disagreement steals your peace. One moment of disappointment makes you feel like everything is falling apart. This happens because our emotional state is tied to the external world, and anything tied to the external world will always be unstable. But the moment you shift your focus inward, you begin building a foundation that cannot be shaken by every passing breeze. When you start working on yourself emotionally, you learn to pause before reacting. You learn to breathe before exploding. You learn to observe before assuming. Instead of letting emotions drag you from one extreme to another, you learn to sit with them, understand them, and respond from wisdom instead of impulsiveness. You become more aware of what triggers you and why. You start recognizing old patterns, the wounds you carry from childhood, the insecurities you carry from past relationships, the fears you carry from failures. And once you recognize them, they lose their invisibility. You finally stop fighting shadows and start healing the real causes. Focusing on yourself teaches you that not every comment deserves a reaction. Not every argument deserves your energy. Not every misunderstanding deserves a war. And not every person deserves a seat at your emotional table. You begin valuing your peace more than your pride. You start thinking, is this going to matter in a week, in a month, in a year? And most of the time the answer is no. You realize that emotional maturity is not about suppressing your feelings. It's about directing them wisely. As you turn inward, you also learn the art of letting go. Letting go of the need to be right. Letting go of the desire to control others. Letting go of grudges that poison your mind long after the situation has ended. You stop replaying old memories that hurt you. You stop expecting others to heal the wounds they didn't create. Instead, you take responsibility for your inner world. You become your own caretaker, your own healer, your own guide. And the beauty is, emotional strength doesn't make you cold, it makes you calm. You stop overthinking every small detail. You stop imagining worst-case scenarios. You stop allowing anxiety to dictate your decisions. A calm mind becomes your natural state, not a rare moment. And in that calmness, you gain clarity, confidence, and courage. People begin to notice the change. They see that you no longer get dragged into unnecessary drama. You no longer argue over meaningless things. You no longer break down over temporary disappointments. You no longer let others control your happiness. You become someone who can stand in the middle of chaos and still remain centered. Emotional strength is not about being unbreakable. It's about being able to bend without falling apart. It's about trusting yourself enough to handle whatever life brings. And when you focus on yourself long enough, patiently enough, honestly enough, this strength grows quietly inside you. In the end, you realize that the greatest power is not controlling situations. It is controlling your response to them. And that power comes only when you focus on your own inner growth. That is when everything slowly and beautifully begins to change. When you finally start focusing on yourself, something almost magical begins to happen in your relationships. The pressure you once carried to impress, to please, to adjust beyond your limits, to sacrifice your peace just to keep someone, slowly fades away. You stop entering relationships from a place of emptiness. You stop searching for someone to complete you, fix you, validate you, or save you. Instead, you show up whole, aware, grounded, and emotionally steady. And when you show up whole, every relationship in your life naturally improves. Because you are no longer connecting from need, you are connecting from truth. Most relationships become complicated because people enter them hoping someone else will fill the gaps inside them. They hope a partner will cure their loneliness, a friend will fix their insecurity, or a family member will make them feel worthy. But when you seek healing from someone who is also wounded, pain spreads instead of peace. When you expect others to give what you haven't built within yourself, frustration becomes inevitable. Focusing on yourself changes this dynamic completely. You stop expecting others to carry the emotional weight that belongs to you. You take responsibility for your own growth. your own healing, your own behavior. That shift alone transforms how people connect with you. When you work on yourself, you become more patient, more understanding, more open-hearted. But you also become more aware of your boundaries. You learn when to give and when to step back. You learn the difference between helping someone and hurting yourself in the process. You recognize when a relationship is nurturing you and when it is draining you. You stop tolerating disrespect disguised as jokes, inconsistency disguised as busy, and manipulation disguised as love. You stop confusing attachment with affection. Instead, you choose connections that feel safe, kind, stable, and real. You no longer need someone's constant approval, so you don't suffocate relationships with insecurity. You no longer operate from fear, so you don't overthink every word. You no longer crave attention, so you don't beg for crumbs of affection. Your peace doesn't depend on someone's mood. Your happiness doesn't collapse because of someone's silence. You love people freely without losing yourself in the process. And when you love without fear, your relationships gain depth, trust, and emotional balance. As you focus on yourself, you also become more honest, not in a harsh way, but in a compassionate way. You express your feelings clearly instead of expecting others to guess them. You communicate your needs instead of suppressing them. You apologize when you're wrong instead of defending your ego. You walk away when needed instead of forcing connections that are breaking you. This emotional clarity brings harmony into your relationships. People around you feel safer. They feel understood. They feel respected. And they start treating you the same way. You will also notice that your circle changes. Some people will distance themselves, not because you did something wrong, but because your growth exposes their lack of growth. Your healing shines a light on their wounds. Your boundaries challenge their habits. Your peace interrupts their chaos. And that's okay. The right people will stay. The right people will grow with you. The right people will match your energy instead of draining it. And then something beautiful happens. The people you attract begin to look different, healthier, kinder, more stable, more aligned. Because you no longer attract from a place of emptiness. You attract from abundance. You no longer settle for relationships that break you. You choose relationships that build you. You no longer run behind the ones who ignore you. You walk with the ones who value you. And the more you focus on yourself, the more you realize that the quality of your relationships is a reflection of the quality of your inner world. When you grow internally, your relationships naturally evolve externally. You become easier to love, easier to trust, easier to understand, easier to be around. Not because you've changed for others, but because you've finally changed for yourself. And that change radiates into every connection you have. When you focus on yourself, you don't lose people, you lose the wrong people and attract the right ones. And that shift alone transforms your entire emotional life. When you begin focusing on yourself, you will notice something remarkable. Opportunities start finding you in ways they never did before. Not because the world suddenly became kinder or easier, but because you became clearer, stronger, more intentional, and more aligned with your true self. When your internal world changes, the external world responds. This isn't magic, it's energy, confidence, and mindset working quietly in your favor. Most people live in a state of mental chaos. They are scattered, distracted, stressed, insecure, unsure of who they are or what they want. And when your mind is scattered, your life becomes scattered. Opportunities may be right in front of you, but you can't recognize them because your focus is somewhere else. People may want to work with you, but your lack of self-belief creates hesitation. Life may be opening doors, but your internal noise doesn't let you walk through them. Focusing on yourself changes this dynamic from the inside out. When you work on your growth, you naturally become the kind of person who attracts opportunities instead of chasing them. Your confidence becomes noticeable without you trying. Your discipline becomes visible without you showing off. Your mindset becomes magnetic. You walk into a room differently, with purpose, with clarity, with a sense of direction. People feel it. They sense stability in your presence. They sense dedication in your actions. They sense potential in your energy. And in a world full of uncertainty, a person who is grounded within themselves becomes incredibly attractive, not just to people, but to possibilities. When you focus on yourself, your skills improve, your emotional intelligence deepens, your decision-making becomes sharper, your habits become healthier. And with every small improvement, you become more capable. Opportunities don't simply go to the most talented people. They go to the most prepared, the most consistent, the most self-aware. They go to the ones who are ready. And working on yourself makes you ready. Your mindset also shifts from desperation to intention. Instead of saying, "I hope something good happens," you start saying, "I am preparing for something good to happen." That subtle shift changes everything. Desperation repels opportunities. Confidence attracts them. When you are focused on building yourself, you are no longer waiting for life to rescue you. You are building a life worth living. And life responds to that effort. People around you begin to take you seriously. They see your consistency. They see your growth. They see your focus. And they want to be part of your journey. The kind of people you once dreamed of collaborating with may start noticing you. Conversations that once seemed impossible may start happening. Doors that were once closed may begin to open. Not because luck suddenly favored you, but because you made yourself worthy of those openings. You also begin to recognize opportunities that once went unseen. When your mind is clear, you start noticing connections, chances, ideas, possibilities that were always there, but hidden behind self-doubt or distraction. You start trusting your intuition, and intuition is one of the strongest magnets for opportunity. You begin taking small steps that lead to big changes. You stop procrastinating. You stop second-guessing yourself. You stop waiting for the perfect moment. You take action, and action is the birthplace of opportunity. The more you work on yourself, the more aligned you become with your passions and purpose. And when you are aligned internally, the right opportunities naturally align externally. The wrong ones fall away. The confusing ones become clearer. The overwhelming ones become manageable. And the meaningful ones become undeniable. When you focus on yourself, you stop chasing, you start attracting, you stop forcing, you start flowing, you stop hoping, you start creating. And that is when opportunities begin to arrive in your life, quietly at first, then consistently, then abundantly. Each one bigger, better, and more aligned than the last. Because when you grow, your life grows with you. When you rise, opportunities rise to meet you. And when you invest in yourself, the world starts investing in you too. When you truly begin focusing on yourself, one of the most liberating shifts that happens is this. You stop comparing yourself to others, not because the world changes, but because your inner world becomes strong enough to stand on its own. Comparison loses its grip on you, not because you suddenly become perfect, but because you finally understand that your journey was never meant to look like someone else's. Most people don't realize how deeply comparison steals their joy. You wake up feeling fine until you open your phone and see someone your age achieving something you haven't. You scroll a little more, and suddenly your mind tells you that you're behind, unsuccessful, slow, or unworthy. Social media has made it easy to compare your real life to someone else's highlight reel. Without focusing on yourself, comparison becomes a habit, a destructive one. It makes you question your choices, doubt your abilities, and rush your timing. It makes you feel like your life is not enough. But when you shift your attention inward, everything changes. You start seeing yourself through your own eyes instead of the world's. You stop measuring your worth with someone else's numbers, someone else's salary, followers, achievements, body, beauty, or success. You realize that comparison is a losing game because every human being has a different story, different struggles, different timing, and different blessings. No two lives are meant to unfold the same way. As you focus on your own growth, you begin to appreciate your journey, your pace, your efforts, your progress, even your setbacks. You stop comparing because you finally understand that your timeline is not late, it's unique. That what is slow for you might be perfect for your development. That what others achieved early may not even be aligned with your purpose. You start valuing progress over perfection, consistency over speed, and authenticity over competition. Focusing on yourself also builds self-awareness. You understand your strengths more clearly. You see where you are growing and where you still need work. And because you are deeply invested in improving yourself, the noise of others becomes less relevant. Instead of feeling jealous of someone's success, you start feeling inspired. Instead of feeling threatened by someone's progress, you begin cheering them on because you know their victory doesn't take anything away from yours. This shift is powerful. You move from competing to creating, from comparing to growing, from doubting to believing. You understand that someone else's chapter 20 cannot be compared to your chapter 5. You start realizing that some people bloom early, some bloom late, and some bloom twice. And you stop rushing your own unfolding. Focusing on yourself also brings peace because you stop trying to live up to fake standards. You stop pressuring yourself to have everything figured out by a certain age. You stop letting society dictate your pace. And in that freedom, you begin achieving more. Not because you are faster, but because you are finally aligned. Comparison pulls you in 1,000 directions. Focusing on yourself pulls you in the direction of your destiny. The beautiful thing is, when comparison fades, gratitude blossoms. You start noticing what you already have, your talents, your opportunities, your growth, your resilience. You become proud of yourself in a healthy way. You walk your path with confidence, without looking left or right. Life becomes lighter because you no longer carry the burden of competing with the world. Eventually, you reach a point where you genuinely feel at peace with who you are and where you're going. Not because everything is perfect, but because you no longer define yourself by anyone else's journey. You begin to enjoy the present moment. You begin to trust your timing. You begin to honor your individuality. And that is one of the greatest gifts that comes from focusing on yourself. Is the gift of freedom from comparison. A freedom that allows you to grow in your own way, succeed in your own style, and shine in your own time. When you start focusing on yourself, something extraordinary begins to unfold. Your self-discipline grows, not because someone forced you, not because you felt pressured, but because you finally understand that your life is your responsibility. For the first time, you stop waiting for the right moment, the perfect mood, or the motivation to arrive, and you begin taking charge of your actions. Discipline becomes less of a punishment and more of an act of self-love. Most people think discipline is difficult because they try to build it outwardly, by forcing routines, copying others, or setting unrealistic standards. But true discipline doesn't grow from force, it grows from focus. When your attention is scattered everywhere, what people think of you, who is doing better, who is judging you, who is ahead, your energy becomes weak. A weak mind cannot build strong habits. But when you turn inward and prioritize your growth, your goals, your future, your dreams, discipline becomes natural. You begin to realize that your habits are shaping your destiny every single day. The way you spend 1 hour becomes the way you spend your life. The small choices you make when no one is watching become the foundation of the life you end up living. And suddenly, skipping your goals doesn't feel harmless anymore. It feels like self-betrayal. Because when you focus on yourself, you develop a deep sense of honesty with your own soul. You stop lying to yourself. You stop making excuses that only keep you stagnant. You stop procrastinating on the life you truly want. Discipline starts looking different. You wake up earlier not because you have to, but because your future deserves it. You work on your dreams consistently because you finally trust that your effort matters. You take control of your habits, your eating, your sleeping, your learning, your productivity, not out of fear, but out of purpose. You no longer wait to feel motivated because you understand that motivation is temporary, but discipline creates permanent change. Focusing on yourself also helps you understand your weaknesses, your distractions, your tendencies, your emotional patterns. Instead of judging yourself harshly, you start improving them one by one. You become patient with your progress. You track your growth. You celebrate your small wins. You forgive yourself for setbacks, but you don't allow yourself to quit. You get back up every single time because you know your future self is depending on you. And slowly, discipline becomes part of your identity. You begin to see the results. Your mind becomes sharper. Your goals start aligning. Your confidence grows. Your productivity increases. And your life becomes more organized. You feel more in control, more grounded, more powerful. You stop seeking comfort and start seeking progress. You stop running from challenges and start embracing them. Discipline becomes your silent strength, the kind that no one sees, but everyone notices. People around you start wondering how you're changing so fast, how you're improving so steadily. What they don't see is the internal work, the nights you pushed yourself, the mornings you chose growth over comfort, the moments you said no to distractions, the decisions you made that no one applauded. But you know, and that knowledge fuels you even more. The beautiful thing is, discipline also brings freedom. When you are disciplined, you no longer feel overwhelmed by life. You no longer feel lost or directionless. You don't depend on luck. You don't wait for life to magically change. You don't live in anxiety about the future because you are actively building it. Discipline frees your mind from chaos and gives you control over your own narrative. And the more disciplined you become, the more powerful you feel, because discipline is proof that you can rely on yourself. It is proof that you can trust your own commitment. It is proof that you can build the life you dream of. Focusing on yourself doesn't just give you discipline, it gives you the unshakable belief that you are capable of becoming someone extraordinary. When you focus on yourself, the world stops distracting you. Your excuses stop trapping you. Your fears stop limiting you. You rise slowly, steadily, unshakably, powered by the discipline you built with your own hands. When you begin focusing on yourself, one of the most profound transformations you experience is this: for you stop settling. You stop accepting half love, half effort, half respect, half opportunities, half commitment, half interest, and half-hearted versions of life. You stop shrinking yourself just to fit into places that were never built for your growth. You stop tolerating things that drain your spirit. You stop staying where your soul is suffocating. This shift doesn't happen overnight. It happens quietly, deeply, as you reconnect with your own worth. For most of your life, you may have accepted things not because they were good for you, but because you didn't fully believe you deserved better. You tolerated neglect because you were afraid of being alone. You allowed disrespect because you confused attachment with love. You settled for mediocrity because you doubted your own potential. You said yes when your heart whispered no. You stayed silent when your boundaries were crossed. You accepted crumbs of affection because you didn't realize you were worthy of a whole feast. But when you start truly focusing on yourself, your healing, your growth, your peace, your self-awareness, something inside you begins to awaken. You start seeing your own value clearly, maybe for the first time. You stop viewing yourself through the lens of your insecurities and start viewing yourself through the lens of your potential. You realize that settling is not humility, it's abandonment of self. It's choosing comfort over growth, fear over courage, and familiarity over fulfillment. And so you begin to raise your standards, not out of arrogance, but out of self-respect. You stop entertaining people who only show up when it's convenient for them. You stop giving your energy to relationships that feel one-sided. You stop explaining your worth to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop accepting apologies without change behavior. You stop participating in situations that keep you emotionally unstable. You stop lowering the bar hoping someone will rise to meet you. Instead, you start protecting your peace like it's sacred because it is. You choose environments that inspire you instead of draining you. You prioritize your mental and emotional health over temporary pleasures. You choose friends who celebrate your growth, not those who feel threatened by it. You choose partners who value your presence, not those who only miss you when you walk away. You choose opportunities that align with your purpose, not distractions that keep you stuck. Your no becomes stronger. Your yes becomes intentional. Your boundaries become firm. Your voice becomes clearer. Your choices become aligned with the person you are becoming, not the person you used to be. You stop seeing walking away as loss and start seeing it as protection. You stop chasing things that aren't meant for you and start attracting things that match your energy. People may say you've changed, but the truth is you've simply stopped settling. As you continue focusing on yourself, the world around you adjusts. The wrong people naturally fall out of your life because they can no longer access the unhealed version of you. The right people enter your life with respect, honesty, and genuine intention because your energy now demands it. Opportunities become better. Environments become healthier. Conversations become deeper. Connections become real. And your life begins to feel like it finally aligns with who you truly are. There comes a moment when you sit with yourself and realize that settling was never about lack of options. It was about lack of self-belief. And now that you believe in yourself, settling becomes impossible. You reach a point where you would rather walk alone with peace than stay with someone who gives you anxiety. You would rather wait for the right opportunity than rush into the wrong one. You would rather protect your spirit than please the world. You would rather choose growth over comfort. You would rather choose yourself over anything that asks you to abandon your worth. And that is the beauty of focusing on yourself. As you rise to a level where settling is no longer even a thought, because you finally know what you truly deserve,